remember we met, or you might have forgotten.
Is it? Yeah. In event.
हाँ, देखा हुआ लग रहा है.
Acha, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
चलो ठीक है.
We met in the holy get together, I guess, right?
हाँ, दिल्ली में.
Delhi में, I think some place
दिल्ली
called.
में me, Anirudh, Ashish, you, we all went out after the
Now I remember. Yeah.
after
Hard
party.
to it's hard to forget that.
After party.
Mhm.
जिसमें Anirudh and Ashish both went into a absolute
Yeah,
dancing frenzy.
yeah. So I'm not a party person, so it's probably like one of my
I know.
like
Also
only
not a party person, but
too much
yes, I
parties.
enjoy seeing other people dance.
That's right.
Ayush, your audio is a little faint. If you might want to come close to the device or just increase the volume, that'll be helpful. Thank you.
Is it better now?
Little better.
Mm-mm-mm.
New settings. Ah,
Now?
input
How about
volume.
now?
I know what was the problem. The input volume was low.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It automatically
Got it.
adjusts the input volume somehow at times.
Yeah, that's right. I really hate the waiting room thing. I think it should not exist. A lot of time
Great.
gets wasted.
I think in the meanwhile, while people are joining in, we'll just very quickly start with the flow of the event today. So this is part of the TiE Bootcamp series, which we started a couple of weeks ago. The idea is to talk about various aspects of building startup in the country. We started with a session on entrepreneurial mindset. We then went on covered the business model canvas. And then some other topics. Today, we are very excited to have Ayush with us, where we'll talk about one more very, very interesting session. We have 20 plus highly curated topics, which we are going to be covered by industry experts. This is eventually conceptualized to help kickstart and take the startup journey to the next level. Thanks to Abhishek Rungta, President TiE Kolkata, to help all of us with this very interesting initiative, and we are very excited that this has taken up pretty interesting shape. I would like to remind all our guests today, if you would like to ask any question, do not hesitate to put your questions on the Q&A board, where we'll take the question for Ayush. We'll start with a quick introduction about TiE Kolkata. Then we would have a quick speaker introduction. We would then go into a conversation with Ayush, and after that, we'll listen from the expert today. Without any further ado, I would like to invite President TiE Kolkata, Mr. Abhishek Rungta, to welcome all the guests and just set the context for the event. Abhishek, over to you.
Thanks, Ravi. Again, you know very well I don't like these formal introductions. But anyways, welcome all of you. And thanks, Ayush, for taking out time. I know every minute spent on something apart from your business is very expensive for you. So thank you for sparing this time and effort to share your experience with our TiE members who are all budding entrepreneurs. So this is a set of curated entrepreneurs from Eastern India who would love to obviously learn different aspects of entrepreneurship from and kind of build their business while they learn from different experts. So we felt you would do a great deal of justice to share your journey and also share some of the insights and learnings from your journey with them, because you have already built a great company, and you have got some amazing people. I was hearing and reading about some news articles. I think you got on board some very senior guy. Uh, I don't remember exactly who was that, but maybe you can also share a little bit of that story, right? Because a lot of us always kind of struggle to get senior people by punching above our weight. So would love to kind of also hear that story. So yeah, over to you, Ayush. I think we are all really eager to hear your story and your deliberations.
Sure, yeah. Thanks for inviting me as well. I think Ravi reached out, and I think it reminded me of 2014, 15, 16, when I used to jump the fences and attend TiE events all the time. Never bought tickets, and Upasana caught me so many times as well. So I think I've been like an early member who got a lot of exposure, and I was from Varanasi, so it's very hard to absorb a lot of things you get to learn, right? But having said that, I think I'm sort of excited about what we are building. I'm usually a very curious person around different things, what's happening around the world. And I think that the reason why I'm here today is because I think that everyone should start up, right? And I'll give a very very sort of simple breakdown of why starting up is so easy today, right? And then we can jump into questions and talk about things which sort of matters and excites people. On the last part, on people joining and stuff like that, I think there is, on one hand, I think I've been really really grateful, and lucky, and blessed to have an amazing team and people believing in Pesto and the journey and the story. But on the other hand, I would encourage people to sort of focus on the things which are less shiny, but things which really matters, right? So I think it's something which I've learned over the years, that I always wanted to learn how do you actually do things, rather than sort of getting excited by different items. So I'll talk about some of the very specific action items. I was told that there are some amazing early stage entrepreneurs in the session today, and I'll share the learnings which I had, a quick bit of learnings which I had over the years at an early stage. We are still early, I would say, in our journey. Pesto has a lot to do, and we haven't even got started yet properly, right? So I think, having said that, I'll quickly jump into a quick presentation and of some of the logical things which I think might help people, right?
Thanks a lot, Ayush. If I can take this opportunity very quickly to introduce you to our guest today, while it's not a formal introduction, but it's always helpful to get a little background.
Absolutely.
Ayush Jaiswal is the co-founder and CEO of Pesto Tech. It's an intensive training program dedicated to upskilling India's 5 million software engineers and giving them access to borderless job opportunities. Founded in 2017, PestoTech does this by teaching them how to be effective remote employees and showcasing their talent to the world's best tech companies. This is a very interesting secret sauce, I would say, of PestoTech. Growing up, Ayush was fascinated by the potential of tech to change lives and build a better world. He taught himself graphic design, learned how to code and build websites. Eventually, Ayush secured admittance to an engineering college in Delhi, where he founded his first startup. And later on, he decided to fully commit to his entrepreneurial dream and dropped out of college. Ayush spent the next couple of years living the life of a digital nomad, founding a series of startups and living out of co-working spaces. After several brainstorming sessions, he realized that India has a massive untapped pool of computer programming potential. With the aid of a training program designed to polish their skills, these engineers could be connected to global companies as remote employees and have their salaries paid in the US dollars, which is always a very interesting opportunity for a developer. While the companies gain a top-notch resource and work worthy of Silicon Valley, the employees see their income levels soar to the next heights. This was an opportunity to change millions of lives, and that's the story of how Pesto Tech began. Pesto has been a very interesting company. I know Ayush for a long time now, and I'm very, very glad that we are here listening to Ayush. And today we'll try to cover what are the top essential, I would say, pointers which can help you build a early stage company, and how it is very easy in today's world to build a world class company no matter where are you based. Ayush, over to you.
Thanks, Ravi. You just made me feel कि क्या काम कर रहे हैं हम लोग. It sounds so much more exciting. But thanks for wonderful words. Appreciate it, and I think I'm excited to share some of those learnings, and I think things which can help um, people as well. Oops, I'll quickly share my screen and get started. Yeah, sure, guys. I think. I'll quickly get into. I think I heard that most of you are early stage entrepreneurs, and I think at an early stage, it's been a few years for me. But I think at an early stage, what happens is that people often struggle to get down to what is the starting point, right? How you should do things. How it's really hard to get clarity into what you want to build, and I'm going to talk about that clarity. And I think that whatever you're building, like building something, it's extremely important in today's day and age, because if you're not building something, the cost, the opportunity cost which you're paying for it is extremely high, right? So I think I'll talk about that and dig into, simple ways around simple steps which you can take. And I think building a startup is not just about the skill sets which you have, but it's also about the values, right? And there are certain values which people sort of learn over the period of time, which matters the most, like more than the others, at an early stage. So I'll just talk about those, right? In quick 10-15 minute manner, and then we'll jump into Q&As, right? The first one is that, how do you start a startup, right? I think startups have like two basic building blocks. One is that you have to start building something, right? Build whatever you think adds value. There's a wonderful blog by Paul Graham which I read back in the day, which says that how do you get startup ideas, right? If you just go to paulgraham.com, you will find that uh, sort of essay. It talks about that the best ways to get ideas is that you need to build something for yourself. You need to solve some problem, preferably the problem which you are facing. And if you're lucky, then there would be a large enough group of people who are facing similar problem, who then become your cheerleaders, your supporters, which then becomes like a market for you, right? So I think building something is extremely important. How do you find out that what is that something is by looking at problems around you, and see what you can find which will work, right? The second one is that when you build something, you're always nervous about what if I launch a startup which fails, right? Or what if I launch a startup which does not get much traction, right? I remember me launching so many different ideas, and the problem was that only my few friends and my parents would come on the website and check it out, right? And that never really got any bit of traction, but I was as excited about that idea being the next big thing, right? So I think, how do you test if people love it? I'll talk about that at all, right? But before I get into that, I want to share a quick framework of mind, right? That how you should think about something, so that you understand why you need to start something today, and if you fail, then what should be the next step after that, right? And this is the framework which I've been following over the years, right? Like, when you're building a startup at an early stage, you need to find some ideas, right? But when you find those ideas, the best ideas you can find by finding problems around you, right? And something I would love to share here, um, which I've seen that people very often sort of misunderstand, right? Like, when I was looking for sort of starting something, I always heard people said that, look for problems to solve, right? um, the thing which I wanted to share is that, if the problems are so obvious that it is visible to everybody, they probably would have been solved already, right? So it's not easy to find the problems. That's point number one. Point number two is that I don't think startups are built. It's slightly different than what we read, but I really feel that startups are not built by finding problems, out there in the market. I feel great startups are built when you actually look at a thing, look at a way of doing something, right? And then you make it so much more efficient that the previous way of doing it looks like a problem now, right? I'll give you a quick example, right? Recharging your mobile phone, right? It was so easy. You would go to the shop nearby your house, and that person would quickly recharge the thing. And if you face any problem, you had this reliability that, I can go to that guy and ask him what happened. So there was like a quick way of doing it, even though you had to go, outside of your house, to get down to the shop. It wasn't 24/7 available, yada yada yada. But I remember that in the early stages of mobile recharge companies, people had an argument that the other way might be just working. um, and as those startups, Freecharge and Paytm, made it the norm, and everybody sort of got access to it, they just realized that it was just so much more efficient to do it that way. And once people got used to it, the previous way of doing it now looked like such a big problem, right? So I think that you can think about so many other startups, which great startups which were built, which just made the process so much more efficient, that the previous way looked like a problem, right? So that is one, that when you think about ideas, do not overthink that you don't have something which is like a big problem. Don't ask the customers, that is this a big problem for you, so on and so forth, because Henry Ford once said that if I asked people what do they want, they would have said that they want a faster horse, right? So I think it's extremely important to listen to your customers, but in the right ways, right? And I'll talk about how do you listen to customers as well. But yeah, the point I wanted to make was that when you're thinking about ideas, don't think a lot. Just take the dig, work on your different side projects, and keep launching those projects, right? And the graph which I want to explain is the following. When you look at certain ideas, you launch it on some platform, right? Product Hunt, for example, is a great platform to launch startup ideas. If you're active on HackerNoon, you can just write on HackerNoon what you're working on, and if it adds value to people, it automatically gets traction. You can build your own distribution sort of strategies by writing blogs, by launching a Substack, or doing whatever, right? Like via social media, so on and so forth. So there are two things here. Come up with the idea, build a very very simple product. If the product is good, you have done something wrong. The product has to be bad, right? If the product is not scrappy, you're doing something wrong. And the reason why it's important is that when you're launching a certain idea and people are using your product despite it being scrappy and having so many bugs, shows that the value proposition is really really good, right? So come up with an idea, launch it in a very very minimal way. If you have bugs, doesn't matter, you're not Facebook, people are not going to get angry. Mom and dad are your only customers, right? So don't worry about getting sort of feedback from customers, and launch it, and then measure whether you're getting love on that idea or on that project or not, whether you are getting love or you're getting failure, right? If you get failure, this graph shows time. As you The x-axis is time here. So when you launch an idea, either you get success or you get failure. If you get failure, then you learn and evolve, and you get success at some point of time, right? And if you get failure again, then you continue that process as an iterating process, right? What I'm advocating here is against being in a confused state, right? That if you are in a situation where you haven't decided yet, where you're thinking that uh, you know um, because of fear of failure you're not launching something, right? And I know that you find 10,000 reasons to justify, to cover it up, but if you put ice cream on top of bullshit, it still smells like bullshit, right? So I think it's extremely important to be honest to yourself. Think about what you want to do. I am saying that don't be in a confused state. Do something, either fail or succeed, because if you fail, if you don't get any love from customers, you fail again. And the beautiful part about failing again is that failures do not happen, in vain. Failures always teach you. And I know it's a very cliche thing which you might have heard so many times, that failures are good, failures are, you know. I am somebody who believes that failures are not good, because by failing, you know what not to do, but when you succeed, you exactly know what to do over and over again, right? So I think I do not like failing until I failed, right? But once you fail, I'm talking about the positive side of failure, right? Always strive to succeed, but once you fail, I think you learn and evolve, and that's like just a path to success, right? um Interesting things out of this slide is that, a, do not be in the confused state, because I have talked about the opportunity cost here. the opportunity cost for you being confused and not doing anything is extremely high, because you're not learning or you're not getting success. Your success is getting delayed, right? So not being in a confused state because opportunity cost becomes extremely high is one. And the second thing is that because the opportunity cost is high, failing fast increases your chances of success. And I think if you ask a lot of successful people how did they get success, they will very often say that they got lucky, right? But this is actually a framework to get lucky faster, right? If you just do a lot of experiments and you try to fail fast, you will get lucky at some point of time, and you will find a product which the market loves in a much more efficient or faster way, right? um, the second one is less is more, right? I think it's a very classic problem which I've seen, especially engineers. If you're someone who has worked on a large startup, if you have worked on something which is much larger, your thought process is often like, I need to build this product really nicely. The UI is going to be nice, right? I think a lot of people think that making a clean or a nice user design, user experience and design will make it easy for you to get customers, right? Whereas I'm advocating for having a bad UI. In fact, even if you are a designer, I would encourage you to design your product badly, right? Because when you design your product badly, people are not coming there for design, they're coming there for value, they're coming there for the innovation which you have come up with, they're coming there for the product itself, right? um, and I think that gives you ability to measure how much people want it, right? And that kind of like, acts as a proxy. One quick example is a very large company, Dropbox, right? Dropbox was launched in I think early a decade ago, almost. They were in the early YC batch. Um, and over the years, if you think about it, Dropbox has not really evolved much, right? They just had a certain product proposition, and they just continued building on it, and there was nothing new which happened. But the company still is just such a massive success because the core value proposition which they had was so strong that despite any changes over last one decade, which is very very large, um, they still are a massive and a great company, right? So I think finding that value proposition is the biggest thing when thinking about a startup, right? So if you worked at a startup or at a large company, always remember that you're trying to build a bike, the first version of the bike, right? If you end up, especially the developers, if we have engineers in this audience, um, don't try to make your product future ready, because in the present you don't have 100 customers, right? So what will you do to make it like scalable and all that, all the things which you have been taught in school and in companies you have worked at? All of that does not work here, right? Because you need to work on something which just gives you validation of whether you have found the value proposition yet or not. I remember saying that you should not shoot a bird with a cannon. That's exactly what I'm trying to explain here. That I think a lot of your mentors sometimes will come and say that while building a product, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to make it so much more efficient, you need to be ready for the scale and whatnot, right? You need to price it well, yada yada yada. But I think the more you think from a framework where you ask yourself that all my everything which I'm building, I'm going to divide all the features, all the things which I'm doing on my roadmap into three categories. Category one is things which do users don't like, get rid of them right away, right? The second category would be things which are valuable, right? And the third category would be things which are super valuable. So this is my favorite way to take customer feedback. I ask them to categorize things in these three different buckets, right? The second thing which you do is you get rid of everything which is valuable, right? When you think about it from this perspective, that there are things which are valuable and there are things which are super valuable, it really gives you the right mental framework to give respect to things which are valuable, but at the same time, give yourself a reality check that even though it's valuable, it's not the core value proposition of what I'm trying to build. And only retain things which are super valuable, right? I think that is something which really helps you get down to the value which you're adding to the customers, and makes your product simple, right? And I think the reason why that works is that the world is full of noise, and you don't really have a lot of opportunities or time to capture your users attention. And in order to do that, people need to know what your company is in like an instant, right? Like 3 4 5 seconds at best, right? What does your company do, what to expect out of it, right? That is why most of the companies have one core value proposition, which sort of lasts a long time, and you build features on top of it later on, right, when you have room. Um, and yeah, don't I think a lot of people try to give examples of what Google is doing, what XYZ company is doing, because they're doing well and they're a large company. I think if you seek to take example from Google or any other companies, that they're also doing multiple things, so why can't I do multiple things? Remember that Google started with only one core feature, which was ranking the pages based on backlinks. That is it. It was a search which was optimized by using a different mechanism, which was using backlinks to give credibility to a different page, right? So I think whenever you look at companies, go back to their roots. You will always find that there is one single core value proposition, and the framework you do that to reach that core value proposition is those three buckets: features which are useless, things which people value, and things which are super valuable for users. um, the next thing is iterating every day, right? I think launching a startup is not a one time thing. I know that there are a lot of companies which try to pretend that they worked in stealth mode, and suddenly they launched something which really went out of proportions, and did really well. I know examples of those companies. I'm not going to give it here, but I also know that I was one of the early users of them, and how they built different things. And when they found something which works, so they work in beta with a fixed number of customers, which really helps them realize what is working, what is not working, which helps them iterate and improve over a period of time. And once you find the value proposition, which is really really good, then you launch it to the public. And Product Hunt is a really good platform or a way to do that, right? I think I just tried to sort of take an image. It's like a nice image. I used to have it on my wall at some point of time. It talks about how compounding works, right? If you're trying to improve 1% every day, trying to learn one thing every day, trying to make your product 1% simpler every day, I think the compounding effect of that really, really adds up. So I think if you really start thinking about those things as a founder, um, in from that macro perspective, that don't try to do everything in a single day. Everything is a 3 to 5 year long story. So always think that what are the small things you can do, small efforts you can take, but try to create those efforts into an iterative process, which you do at regular intervals, right? And that will help you get some really really good returns. The last point I wanted to say was change is the only constant, right? I think, including myself, there are so many amazing entrepreneurs I know who get very emotional with the value proposition which they had at an early stage, right? And that really hurts the company, because then you are not listening to customers, right? So I think one of my favorite things to do is to jump in a swimming pool in winters, right? um, when the wind is not blowing, of course. The reason being that I think it's weird feeling as human beings. I think we all fear change, right? That once you jump in a pool, your temperature body is going to adjust and you'll be fine. Again, if the wind is not blowing. Uh, but uh, but still, you don't make that jump because you fear the moment when your body strikes the water, right? And how you'll feel cold for a few seconds. I think that is a fact that, we don't like many changes. And I feel that, if you don't change your product, your offering, your approach, constantly, not just now but over the number of years to come, I think it becomes really really hard to build a company which survives, long term. And I think the markets are changing really really fast, and it's really important to, keep up with it. And that's why I very often say that startups are like palm trees. The ones which, change their direction or bend with the direction of the wind, are the ones who survive, and the ones which don't bend are the ones who, get ripped off. So I think we should be like palm trees, with respect to our mindset, with respect to our approach, and how we change. And the wind is actually the market and your customers. If they want you to change, you change. I think that's like one of the only ways of building a successful startup. So yeah, that's all from my side. I would love to make this conversation more around Q&As. Reason being that, I would love to know you guys, what are the things which you're curious about, and I'll then sort of try to share things which are more specific to things which you are thinking about. Hello.
Yeah, Ayush, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Ayush. It was a very amazing session.
Thanks, Ayush. Thanks, Neha, as well. I think this was pretty interesting. Let's start with some questions very quickly, Ayush, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lokesh had a question.
Yeah,
Sure.
he has raised his.
Yeah, hi Ayush. Thanks so much for showing us the very basics, but very very important, which we miss out most of the time. I want to know, if I'm starting a new platform, working on it. So, like you mentioned, Hack Noon and Product Hunt. So, which are these couple of platforms where actually one can learn, test, and probably get some insights into startups and things like that? What would you suggest?
Got it. I think one of the best ones is Product Hunt. I'm actually writing something on Product Hunt around how do you launch your company. So Product Hunt is a platform or a community of makers. There are a lot of developers there. There are a lot of people who just work on different side projects, and they launch it on Product Hunt to see whether people like it or not. And if they get traction on Product Hunt, they decide to leave their jobs and continue their startup, and work on it full time. Apart from these kind of people, some of the best people or entrepreneurs around the world launch their companies on Product Hunt, because it's basically the community where everybody is an entrepreneur or a maker or a developer, right? So it kind of really helps when you're launching something early on to get genuine feedback from that community. So yeah, I think that one is something which I would really highly recommend. Product Hunt was also acquired by AngelList, so you can get access to that. Another one which I would say is Hacker Noon. I think that is Hacker News. Sorry, that is one of the key places where I find which are the most sort of exciting projects which are going on. What are people working on? So on and so forth, right? So I think Hacker News and Product Hunt can be two really good platforms. Apart from that, I would really encourage everyone to check out Substack. Substack is a way to launch your own publication, build an audience, and start writing email newsletters to them. I think that is something which is really picking up around the world. There are journalists who are leaving their jobs and moving down to launching their own publications. How I think that Substack can be very very influential for startups is, you can actually start writing. I think content is one of the best marketing ways which I feel exists. We don't Pesto has never done any advertisement like since last 1 year or so. We spend zero money in ads, but we write a lot of content which is very valuable, and because of which all of our customers are customers who get to know about us from word of mouth, right? And that helps you build a cult. So via content you can add a lot of value, and I think Substack is one of the best ways to simply launch your, newsletters and build your audience. And then via Substack, you can keep pitching them your startup idea and see how they react to it. So I think
Right.
that is another one which has been really helpful for me.
Thanks. Just a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Any good platforms where I can download and listen to podcasts from entrepreneurs from various walks of life?
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of exploratory ones. I personally stick to Apple Podcast and Spotify. These are the two which I use. But there are a lot of other tools which you can find in Product Hunt itself, which allows you to go to different places. But I think I would recommend that majority of podcasts are now available on all platforms. So I would, instead of looking at platforms to discover podcasts, I would just try to do some research and find the podcasts which are extremely valuable, and then stick to it. I think there is a platform which is gaining a lot of popularity, which is called Clubhouse. uh, we have some really phenomenal conversations going on. So it's not really a podcast, but people chat there live. So I think I found really valuable content there as well.
Thanks so much, Ayush, and thanks, once again.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Ayush. We'll move on to a couple of questions here.
Mhm.
We have a question coming in from Parul. Parul is into campus to corporate training.
Mhm.
They're trying to implement ISA agreement for college graduate, whereby they train them for free and they pay once they get jobs, either through them or on their own. The question is, how do I execute this effectively to ensure that we generate good revenue while helping students to be job ready?
So what part of Parul, if we can sort of specifically ask about what part of execution which you are curious about? Because I say execution is actually really hard. Like, I think the value proposition has to be extremely high, and so that the students really uh, realize that them they're incentivized to stay with you long term, and it's not just a one time activity. Like, I personally believe that income sharing agreements in any way will not work for models which involves a short time engagement, right? Like, if you train people for 8 months and then sort of let them go, and your ISA is for 3 years or more, it probably won't work. I think you need to be constantly adding value to them for it to work, and the value proposition has to be extremely high. How Pesto does it, we are also into income sharing agreements. um, Please guide some innovative way. So Parul, I think how we do it, I can talk about that. I think we focus on value proposition, and we try to help them learn a lot more, and provide, like, so that the delta is very high, and then we help them get jobs at a global level. And our relationship with them is more like a partnership. It's not a one time training thing after which they owe me. It's more like a partnership in which we help them throughout their career, and that's how we execute ISs. I have heard, I strictly disagree with this. um, so just a disclaimer before I tell you this, but I've heard that almost every other ISA player is taking this route of tying up with NBFCs, which basically sort of is a contract between the student, you, and the NBFC. After which, the ISA becomes a loan for this person, and they pay the EMI to this NBFC, right? So that the collection risk is hedged off from you. You get the money upfront, and the collection is done by that NBFC, right? NBFC is non-banking financial institution. And you can drop me an email and I can help you connect with a couple. I know sort of a couple of them, but that's how majority of players are doing it. But as I said, again, I disagree with that mechanism. But you can do it. It's your opinion. I respect that.
Great. I think Parul said that's a very helpful insight. Next
Mhm.
question is from Amit Maheshwari. The question is, how can I move from a freelance web company to an enterprise full solution company, rather taking like a leap jump. Your take on that, Ayush?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to invite Amit. Can we invite Amit there so that he can explain
Sure,
the.
sure, certainly. Amit, it'll be great if you want to come online, maybe have a chat with Ayush. I'm going to give you the mic access. Uh, Amit, you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, hello, Ayush and Ravi.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Ayush. So we are like a web designing company, and we have a team of around 12, and we do decent job on various technology, PHP, Magento, WordPress, Shopify,
Hmm.
coding intelligent. But yeah, that's a good tool for a agency or something like that. But to target enterprise level layer to give full host of solution to them, and there is the premium, right?
Got it. Yeah, I think you're basically asking how do you make more money, right? By enterprise.
Right.
That's what I was curious
Right,
about.
but positioning, I am finding hard to position myself there.
That's right. I totally understand that. I used to run a services company early stage as well, like back in the day. And I think every services company's biggest question for them is how do I productize my services? How do I get into product? Or they would have a product which would be going on, which never works. Reason being that your focus, your inclination is not on that. How do you make more money? I think the mindset that's again like my personal opinion. I don't have the experience of building a big sort of agency or a services company, but I think my hunch is that you should totally, if I have to hire an agency to do whatever, instead of looking at an agency which offers all these services, I will look at an agency which is establishing its credibility into one single domain and is going deeper into it, right? And that really helps because if you're working on 10 different technologies, you will lack depth, which means that the quality at any given point of time will always be smaller. Whereas if I ask you that what is the market for, let's say, just JavaScript or just Python, right? um, or any one particular kind of services, DevOps maybe, and nothing else, right? Then the market for DevOps is alone very large, right? So if you focus all your resources into focusing just on one thing and doing that one thing really well, your brand will get established in the market over the years, and then slowly you can sort of expand to other parts. But I think any one technology, no matter what that is, the market for that is large enough. So I think focusing on one thing instead of trying to create a full solution, like like in the conversation I was saying, less is more. I think that really matters. The less you do, but how well you do it, is I think the USP for an agency or a services company. Yeah.
Point taken.
Yeah. And if
Yeah,
you want to build a product, just take the leap, you know.
no, I think not about the product, but yeah, toward a solution only, because yeah, there is always a incline towards service and product different,
Yeah,
and mindset is different all time.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Ayush, for your side.
Awesome.
Wonderful. We have next question from Nayan. Ayush, your views on idea validation.
Idea validation. Yeah, I think you look at the market. We were earlier talking about how do you launch on Product Hunt, or how do you get in front of customers. You build something and then you get in front of customers, and you see whether you love they love your product or not, right? And you establish certain metrics to measure that. You think about those metrics, so on and so forth. So I think it's it's extremely important. Most of my talk today was around that you know you would want to validate ideas by removing things, by giving sort of very specific value proposition to customers and see whether it's working or not. And then go by it. Naman, if you have anything specific to ask in this, I think I would love to do that. If you're looking out for tools to measure or stuff like that, I can get into that. But I think if your question is more around uh, you know uh, sort of how do you do it, I think you just get in front of customers, create some metrics for yourself, and focus on one core value and get their feedback on that. I would really try to spend as much time as possible with customers. I literally lived with my customers, right? At an early stage. The first two cohorts of Pesto which went out, all the students who were there, I housed them in my house and I lived with them for months. And I asked them, I observed them, how are they thinking, what are the times they're working, how is their life, and all of those things, right? And I tried to understand all of those things before we sort of really launched more batches. And I continue to do that. So I think uh, yeah, that those are some ways, like start living with your customers if you can, or try to get as much data about them as possible.
That's wonderful. Sandeep is asking, how do we find product market fit?
This is a $1 million question. I think Sandeep, it's like product market fit is the holy grail. It's product market fit is when you really see things which start working magically. I look at it in a certain way. I think if I get your question right, I think it's more on the lines of when do you know if you have reached PMF or not? Because I think as long as you're validating your idea or your product, I think that's you're doing all those things to know how to do it. But when do you know whether you have found product market fit or not? I'll try to answer that question, since I talked about the idea validation earlier. I think a couple of things works. Whenever you're working on a project, there will come a time when your salespeople will stop selling the product and the product will start selling itself. When your customers will refer more customers, and they will not you will not have to make efforts into selling something, right? And um, and a time when everything starts breaking, right? You have just too much traction, there are too many bugs on your website, too many feature requests, too much customers coming in which you can't service, and things like that, right? When you have your hands full and you don't really uh, have time to really look back, I think that is when you know you have found PMF, right? So basically when things starts breaking and when you don't have salespeople in the team, right? I think these are the two times I would say you have found PMF. Awesome. I hope that answered your question.
Sure, I think that does. Um, One of the question I mean, this is from my end. When you started building Pesto, I mean, we all know that Indian developers are have been working with some of the best companies in Silicon Valley and other part of the world, but it was all on H1B and a lot of back and forth. It requires a lot of validation as well. You have created something very unique where this organization will place the bet on the entire training mechanism of Pesto, which looks very, very, while it looks very simple, but I'm sure it took a lot of effort to do that. When you acquired your first client, what was your pitch to them, and how did you convince that client that we are going to give you the best quality of developer to work with you remotely? Because that's a very complicated proposition to choose, Ayush.
Well, I told them that we would pay for it if it doesn't work. I think it was there are two parts of it. I mean, most of the problems to solve, you will often find chicken and egg problems there. I think point number one was that I went to software developers and I asked them what can we do to you which will make you leave everything else and join Pesto, right? Like, what would be that mind-boggling thing which you can imagine, which will sort of make you not think about anything before making the leap. And in early days of Pesto, people had to leave their jobs, right? So look at the I was just talking about this, that I was saying that you should have product which does not have good UI, which does not have a lot of things which don't matter from a longer term perspective, because that is when you experience the real value proposition which you have, right? The first entire year, or maybe a year and a half, of Pesto's operations happened in a certain way. We went to developers, we told them that you will have to leave your job to join Pesto for 3 months. You will have to fly down to Delhi. And I think in 2017, Delhi was not the most popular place to be, 2017-18, because of the pollution, right? Which we are not proud of, but it was like not intentional, but it happened. They had to fly to Delhi, they had to leave their jobs, and they had to work from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. For an entire year. Our entire team went to office at 9 p.m. at night and came back at 6 a.m. And every single person who joined Pesto also came there to study from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Right? Um, and when we told these things to people, they were like, have you lost it? Are you crazy? Or it was too hard to convince them. But then I asked them that all of these things will happen, but what is that value proposition which you would really want, for which you will still come, right? And that really helped us refine that value proposition, and we continue to do so, right? I think it's a iterative and a longer term process. But that is what we did. And once we had those people, I think convincing companies was easy and hard, right? It was easy because if your value proposition is really good, if the developers are really nice and they sort of know how to code well, they will sell, right? But I think the hard part was that at an early stage in 2017 or 18, when I talked about remote work being the future, uh, a lot of people found it funny, to be honest. And I think the remote industry was quite small at that time. um, I had my own conviction because I sort of thought it makes sense. I attended a lecture by Balaji, and I saw what GitLab Zapier were doing, and I thought it is just the right thing to do, and that is the future. I thought it will take time. It will take 2-3 years probably, but I still thought that we should this would be the right time to do it so that we have some head start. So yeah, I think that was sort of the early sort of first batch situations there. And again, to get developers, I called up some 700 or 800 developers, uh, flew to Bangalore every now and then, and met all of them, tried to understand what they want, and then we convinced them to sort of come and test it out with us.
Great, that's wonderful. I think we have one more question. Gaurav is asking, what is the best form of right recruitment and retention of quality team?
I think at an early stage, getting the right team is more like a marriage, right? It's like a irreversible process, and not exactly irreversible, but still, like I call it irreversible because the opportunity cost of having the wrong people on the team is really high. Um, I think getting the right people is more on the lines of finding people who are aligned with what you're trying to work on, who really are mission oriented, and two, you have great relationships with them, right? I think that's what matters the most, and that chemistry goes on to build company's culture in long term. That reflects on the first 10 people you hire, which reflects on the first 25 people you hire, which reflects on the first 100 people you hire, right? And then that forms the basis of the culture, as the company grows. So yeah, I think that's there, and I would highly recommend working with people from your internal networks, from your networks, as much as possible, before you move out to the traditional ways of recruitment. Retention of the quality team is, if you have people oriented, uh, sort of mission oriented, then probably they would want to work for a longer time period, like, because they're in it to build it, not just to do a job. Um, and uh, and I think the second one is culture. I think building the right culture in your company is extremely important, because building a startup is extremely hard, and it only gets harder. And you would want to make sure that you enjoy every bit which you have on the journey. Otherwise it just becomes too exhaustive.
Wonderful. I think that brings us to the end of the conversation. I think it was very interesting. I would like to bring in Abhishek. Abhishek, any pointers here before we conclude the session, Abhishek?
No, I think Ayush, you've really covered it well, and I really wanted members to think in those lines. And I think when you come in with your experience and when you have recently built something on those lines, people are able to relate a lot more to that. And I, frankly speaking, I wish I could have had this wisdom when I was starting off. I myself made lots of mistakes, and I'm sure among our members, lots of people have made lots of mistakes in
Right.
and it's all about getting great guidance. And so I think this was very valuable. Thank you so much for sharing all this, Ayush. And maybe we'll get see many great products from Calcutta soon.
Oh, 100%. I'll look forward, I think.
And if you allow, I can just add a small part here. So again, though Ayush comes from a tech background, I don't think we should look at product design and development purely from a tech aspect. That for every tech product you have to follow this cycle. This same cycle can be followed in any and every product. In fact, every service, every product, every value proposition. Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of times people spend and invest a lot in building any kind of a service or offering, and at the end of the day when they find that their value proposition is not matching customers expectation, there is a big loss which they have to write off, or they have to kind of then start fixing it. So instead of that, why don't you start experimenting with your value proposition and the customer's need much early in the cycle. So I think this is not just technology, and I just want to make it a little bit more explicit. Though Ayush never mentioned that this is only for technology, but I just want to make it more explicit. It can be for any service, any product, any business.
Oh, 100%. I think just double tapping on that. It's I think Pesto has like one engineer, and we work with freelancers whenever we have to. But I think it's extremely important to know that over engineering your product will always cause more trouble. Uh, and the key is always to find that value prop, right? Like your part to PMF is on depends on you finding that, discovering that value prop. And the less code you write, the faster it is. I think most of the things are available in the market to build things, automate things. Like there is Zapier to automate workflows. You can use Airtable to sort of build on top of so many things. So I think totally, I think the best startups can be built without writing a single line of code, right, in early days, to test out and reach the value prop.
It's
I should. I have one last question, Abhishek, if I may. If you look at the latest trend, especially in the Silicon Valley, there is a growth of no coding companies. They are the new unicorns, unicorns as you call it. How do you see Indian technologies companies, especially outsourcing companies? Some of the big ones. How will they take it up?
I think the value prop is very different. I definitely feel that the large sort of consulting giants uh, are running the risk of being disrupted over the next 5 to 10 years. In the next decade, I think it'll be really really critical for them, especially with respect to the skill sets, right? I think we need to really invest in education. We really need to update our folks with respect to the skill sets they have, because a lot of things are going to get automated, right? And I think I was just reading that the impact which AI is going to have on the market, it is some 3 to 4x more than any other innovation which happened in history, right? And for context, like I'm talking about industrial revolution, I'm talking about electricity, right? Electricity's impact on the world economy was like 0.6%, right? Automobiles had like a similar impact, right? So those are like a really really heavy innovations which happened in the past. And AI's impact is like 1.9% or so, I guess, over the next 10 years. And I think It's the no code softwares are currently focused on early stage startups, which is not really the core sort of customer base of large consulting giants. But it will grow over next few years. So as the world is moving, I think I see a very, very sharp growth in in the entire staffing, temp hiring industry, the staffing industry, the freelance industry, the remote work industry in general. I think all of these guys will grow massively over next 2 to 5 years, and then the decline will come. um, so yeah, I think it's very sort of risky to not update the skill sets, etc. And if your question was that, are these no code tools going to disrupt the entire consulting industry, the answer, the hunch is no. They won't, but so many other innovations which are happening, them combined probably will.
That was wonderful. I really appreciate that insight, and I think I would like to thank you that you took out time for this very, very interesting session. And I'm sure all the participants, I can already see the feedback coming in pretty interesting. And thank you so much once again for sharing those insights. On behalf of TiE Kolkata, Ayush, I would like to thank you, and we would like to continue this partnership. I would not like to restrict it just as one session, but we keep doing various events. I think one of our flagship event is TiECon Kolkata, and we would love to host you there next year.
Absolutely, Ravi. I mean, you just thanks again for inviting me. I think Ravi pinged me one day, and he was like, "Ayush, you have to see us." So I was like, "Adesh, sir." बिल्कुल. Uh, बिल्कुल.
Wonderful.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. And if you have any asks, feel free to connect on Twitter or email or etc. And I'll be happy to help out if I can. Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ayush. Thank you so much, everyone, joining in. Have a great weekend. We have a very interesting event coming up next Saturday, where we'll have a very, very amazing entrepreneur. I'm sure you'll love it. Stay tuned to TiE Kolkata social pages for the announcement. We'll be sharing it soon. Have a great weekend. Look forward to connect you next week. Thank you so much.